this point. Right now, a developing situation there this morning. We're staying on top of this. I've been monitoring Dallas Police Department's Twitter right now, and so we are learning that we are going to get an update in under 10 minutes at this point this morning. It's 9 o'clock Dallas time, 10 o'clock our time. We are expecting to learn more from police. Our sister station, WFAA in Texas, the Dallas area, has been monitoring this. And to give you some perspective, this government office where this happened is just about 4 miles, we're told, from Dallas Love Airport. So that gives you just a little perspective as to where this is happening. I've been listening to some of the news conferences this morning. Again, 3 people shot, 1 person killed. We're told those were not ICE agents, although we're still waiting to learn who was involved in this. The facility is a temporary facility, but operates 24/7. We're told that this is where agents are staffed there. Detainees come in. They're brought into that facility there before they're taken to a more permanent location. So again, a developing situation as we wait to learn more, and we should in just about 5 minutes this morning. I want to let you listen in to WFAA this morning out of Dallas.
Now is in about 7 minutes here, so at 9 o'clock, they say that they will have that press conference here to kind of give us more information, give us more details about what exactly happened early this morning. I want to show you the scene here. I know that Stacia was talking a little bit earlier about just how much of a mess this is. If you remember, earlier this morning, we were in Fort Worth. We drove in here from Fort Worth, got to Dallas, immediately hit this traffic. We went over to Parkland because that's the level 1 trauma center in this area to see if there was an active scene there. That's typically where they take gunshot wound victims to in these types of situations. There was not an active scene there. Also drove by UT Southwestern, not one there either. And then had to make our way back to the staging area, which is over by this Burger King. It took about as long for us to do all that as it took us to get from Fort Worth to Dallas. So that just kind of gives you an idea of just how active this scene is, how much law enforcement is out here this morning, really combing through and trying to make sure that everyone is safe, make sure that that shooter that is dead is the only shooter that they're looking for at this point. So still a lot of things to go through, to comb through at this point. I know we've heard from several of our team here at WFAA this morning, just talking about the sheer magnitude of an investigation like this one, and it is just beginning here now. Again, just a few minutes until this press conference starts. We've seen officers, federal officials moving throughout here trying to get ready, get set up for that. I do want to repeat that at this point, 2 detainees dead, a 3rd one injured, and 1 shooter dead at this point. Part of this investigation, again, going through, figuring out what the motive is here. We know that the victims in this were detainees. Was that the target at this point? That is something that investigators are working to learn right now. And hopefully in the next few minutes, when we do have that press conference, they'll shed more light into the exact details here, whether or not they're looking for someone else, because I know those of you at home are wondering, are we safe at this point? And then remember, this is one of several ICE facilities throughout the DFW area. So at this point, there's probably heightened security there as they look to see if this was just one targeted attack or if we should be on the lookout for more. So a lot of questions here this morning. Again, hopefully we'll learn more in just a few minutes. Sending it back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, Janelle, you mentioned that press conference. I know they are getting ready for that, and we obviously will take you there as soon as we've got someone approaching the podium now. I'm just going to tap dance here for a second to see if they say anything to us or share any information. Of course, we'll take them as soon as they do.
So that is the PIO, Lieutenant Trinice Jones. She is the PIO, and I am told that Chief Como is about to come out and give a briefing here shortly.
Okay, we just heard from our producer that they're not ready yet. They're still setting up, getting all the tech in place.
So again, the PIO, the Public Information Officer, that person often acts as the liaison between what's going on with the police officially and the media. So it makes sense that they would be there. And if you get the chief coming as well, too, you know you're going to hear some more good information.
Yes, and I'm being told by multiple sources that it looks like the detainees were shot as they were loading or unloading that bus. So it was near this particular bus that it happened.
And I think that would be interesting to find out too, as far as like what the schedule is like for that. Did this person know that, or were they just waiting? I mean, all questions obviously that will get answered at some point.
Yeah. Again, for those of you just joining us today, we are following a breaking news story. And again, you updated us, Rebecca Lopez, that we're working to confirm the numbers because we thought it was 3 people injured, 2 of whom later died. But now we're hearing those numbers may be a little bit different at an immigration detention facility here in Dallas.
Yes, so DPD is saying that it is 2 people that were shot, 1 person that has died. But multiple sources, very reliable sources that were on the scene have also told me that it was actually 3 people that were transported and that 2 of them have died. And then obviously the shooter is also dead.
All right. Well, we're going to continue to get different perspectives from people. We have Cole Sullivan. Is he on the phone or is he in the newsroom? He's in the newsroom this morning. Okay, Cole, good morning. What do you have for us?
Good morning. Well, I wanted to give a little bit of additional context. We saw in that live shot from Janelle there where she was standing. I was actually at this ICE detention facility earlier this summer for a scheduled protest, a peaceful protest at that facility. And to give you a little bit of context, I think probably anybody who's driven on 35E through this section just north of downtown has actually driven past this ICE facility, whether you have known it or not. It is a pretty nondescript building, maybe 1 or 2 stories, set a little bit back from that access road there. You can see in that live shot, just about probably half a block further up the road is where that ICE detention facility is. And when we were there for that scheduled protest, there were a lot of law enforcement officers there too, to make sure that everything went smoothly. It turned out not that many people showed up. There have been regularly scheduled protests outside this ICE facility on Mondays for a number of months now, part of the ongoing protests about immigration enforcement activities across the country we have seen here, but obviously nothing like this before. We heard Rebecca a few moments ago talk about where exactly this shooting may have taken place, with potentially a bus of detainees being unloaded in a sally port area. That's that kind of foyer transition area between the outside and the inside of a detention facility called a sally port. That would be on the south side of this ICE detention facility, if I'm remembering correctly from where I was. So that gives a little bit more context of where all this happened, guys.
Great information and perspective this morning, and thank you for checking in with us. We'll catch up with you in just a bit as we get some more information today. But again, if you are just joining us, we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour. If you're expecting to watch Good Morning Texas today, we are preempting that with this breaking news coverage. Again, a shooting at an immigration detention facility here in North Texas. We'll be back in just a moment.
Good morning, 9 o'clock on the dot. We are following 2 breaking news stories this morning. Big stories here in North Texas. The first, a shooting at an ICE facility. We understand that at least 1 person is confirmed dead. We're also hearing that possibly a 2nd person is dead as well. And we understand the sniper who was on the roof doing the shooting, we understand that that person has also been found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. There's a heavy police presence with multiple agencies on there this morning. We also have weather coming in, which is what is making this situation probably even more difficult for investigators. But thank you for being here with us right now. I'm Kara Sewell.
I'm Mark Istook, and we've got Rebecca Lopez, our senior crime and justice reporter, in studio with us as well, as we have followed this breaking story. About 6:40 this morning is when the call came in. And Rebecca, you've been on the phone a lot since then.
Yes, my sources started calling pretty early on and telling me that we needed to get out to that ICE facility because there had been multiple people shot and that there were snipers on the roof. Now, we do believe that there was just 1 person that was doing the shooting, and that person, we are told by multiple sources, did die of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And so there is this massive investigation and crime scene right now.
And you were telling us that although it was DPD, obviously, who is handling this right now, that this will likely then be turned over to the FBI.
It possibly could. I mean, when you are dealing with murder charges, typically those are state charges, but when it happens on a federal facility, sometimes the feds will then take over. And I am told that this happened as they were either unloading or loading a bus of detainees. And that obviously the people that are injured are the detainees. No law enforcement officers have been injured at the scene.
Now, we are waiting for a press conference from DPD Chief Daniel Como in a moment. You mentioned that the public information officer was on the scene. So as soon as they approach the podium there and get a chance to address the media, we will listen in and see what they have to say. But it is important to know we have yet to hear a motive. And I think the immediate assumption in these attacks is it's someone targeting law enforcement. That may very well be the case today. We have yet to confirm that, though, especially when you consider that it's 3 detainees, as we understand, that were shot.
Yeah, correct. We don't know if they were aiming at law law enforcement or aiming at the detainees, and that's going to all come out when they do a profile of who this suspect is. We do know that they have, well, obviously the suspect was found dead on top of a rooftop of a building nearby, and that apparently that he was there waiting, and he was on a perch and he was shooting down at that bus full of detainees.
Okay, so we're waiting for the mayor to arrive, is what our producer was telling us before they start this press conference. Do you know, has there been any sort of increased police presence at these facilities, or this particular facility here in town?
Those facilities are usually pretty, I mean, they have a lot of law enforcement inside the facility and around, but I don't know about that particular area where the bus is, if they have added, you know, extra officers or ICE officers out there, because there have been attacks recently in this area on the ICE facilities. There was the Seagoville case where people that they were shot at there, and so there's just a lot happening when it comes to law enforcement and what is happening in our country right now.
And I asked that because of the increased number of attacks we've seen around the country.
Yes.
I mentioned before that you've been on the phone all morning long. You were texting as you walked up to the desk earlier. I keep seeing messages pop up, so please check your phone if you need to, Rebecca, so you can get whatever the latest information is. We are waiting momentarily to hear from Dallas officials and first responders who are, I believe there's a Burger King kind of staging area there. You can kind of see the podium here, FedEx office location, if you know that area, off of Interstate 35 in Dallas, a little bit northwest of downtown, where we are, again, waiting to get an official update.
And while we do that, are we going to Greg Fields right now? Is that right? Okay, so as soon as we do see law enforcement come to the podium, we'll cut in for that. But the other big story that I mentioned earlier this morning is all of this rain and this cool front that's coming in that's causing a real issue, Greg, out there. Where is it now? What's the timeline?
Yeah, well, you see DFW Airport. I want to start with that because we're looking at some major delays there right now with those departure delays up to 105 minutes out at the airport right now at DFW Airport. So, yeah, that's over an hour and a half that we're talking about with the delays there. So we are going to be looking at the delays out at the airports with those departures. They've been holding the inbound flights, so things pretty much at a standstill out at the airports right now. 72 degrees with those northwest winds at 14 miles per hour there. And as we come over to Love Field, 75-minute delays we're up to there right now. So yes, delays out at the airports with the showers and storms that are moving through. And again, nothing severe, so nothing to be concerned about as far as the severe weather threat is concerned, but certainly enough to cause problems out there on the roads if you're trying to drive around the Metroplex, and obviously impacting the flights in and out of the airports now as well. So light to moderate showers as you look around Dallas and Tarrant County right now, heading over toward Mesquite, picks up a little bit out toward Balch Springs, over toward Seagoville here this morning. Looking at some heavier rain that pushes a little farther east over toward Heath and Rockwall this morning, getting out toward Seagoville, as I mentioned, on into Kaufman County there, looking at some heavier rain. But it is going to be light, and you see the back edge of that beginning to move into Tarrant County right now, the western parts of Denton County right now. So we'll see this ending from west to east here as we go through the morning. But it is fairly widespread, picking up a little bit farther east and south. You can see getting down into the southern portions of North Texas this morning, the showers and storms really increasing there. And this is where we could see some gusty winds, certainly going to have some heavier rain and some winds, maybe gusting up to around 40 miles per hour at times along the southern end of this line of storms as it works its way through. So widespread showers and storms, as we've been talking about all morning, move through pretty much on schedule through the morning rush, and these will continue to work their way east, eventually tapering off as we head toward the afternoon hours here for today. But it is going to be very wet out there. Until then, we'll have to wait until we get to about midday when the showers really start to wind down across the Metroplex, and they will shift a little farther east, getting into our southeastern counties as we head later into today. And then as we come home this afternoon, we will enjoy some drier weather and some partly sunny skies, I think, as well. And those temperatures will be very pleasant for us as well. So we'll finally have some refreshing, cool fall temperatures to enjoy a little bit later today. Again, not concerned about severe weather at all. Maybe some winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour a little bit later, but that's going to be over the far southeastern parts of North Texas today. Now look at the temperatures indicator right now. It is down to 68, 69 in Mineral Wells, 70 heading over to Fort Worth right now, and 76 next as we get out to Terrell. Still going to have some low 80s out ahead of that front, but everyone will be cooling down today with those highs probably not getting back out of the 80s today. So we're probably going to be a little bit below average with those daytime highs here as we head into this afternoon, and those rain chances all but drying up. The temperatures for the rest of the week, they will be quite pleasant, kicking off the state fair. No issues for the first weekend of the state fair at all. We will warm up some, but otherwise it's looking pretty nice for us over the next couple of weeks. In fact, looking at that 14-day forecast one more time for you with the rain coming down. You see there in downtown Dallas, those upper 80s, State Fair Classic looking good there as we head into Saturday, upper 80s as we head into early next week, and then beginning the month of October, it's going to start nice. We're going to have temperatures maybe a little bit cooler late next week, but the sunshine keeps on going through the first week of October. All right, let's get back over to the station. One more check on the roads.
Okay, thanks, Greg. We're watching, of course, the situation in downtown Dallas. I-35 East southbound, the service road is still closed, but you would see the main lanes are open right there pretty close to Mockingbird Lane, close to the ICE detention facility. So they have, again, opened the main lanes after having major closures earlier this morning. Traffic still slow moving. Another issue we're seeing, though, is just south of this location, you have an accident. Obviously, the weather is going to make that morning commute more difficult. So as you're getting ready to leave your house, definitely give yourself a little extra time because it is wet out there and those roads are slick. I-35 northbound at Medical District, an accident there. This is south of the location where you have the police presence, and that is really slowing things down still along the interstate.
All right, we're continuing coverage here at home of this shooting in Dallas, an early morning shooting there. We've been following the coverage there from our sister station, WFAA in Dallas. I want to give you an update right now. They're in weather coverage there as well, but this shooting happened early this morning at an ICE facility there. There are mixed reports this morning, and we are waiting on a news conference that was scheduled for 9 a.m. their time, which would be 10 o'clock ours here in Tampa, to get an update from Dallas police. Again, we're waiting on that. We're going to take you to it when those comments begin this morning. But I want to read you what Dallas police have posted on X this morning because there are mixed reports right now in terms of how many people were killed. Right now, Dallas police say they responded to this block of Stemmons Freeway. Again, this is about 4 miles from the Dallas airport, Dallas Love Airfield. There. This all happened with a sniper on a building nearby this facility there. We're told detainees were being loaded or unloaded out of a bus at the time. We do believe that 3 detainees were hit. We're told 1 person was killed. This is all according to Dallas police on X right now. 1 person killed, 2 people taken to the hospital, and then that shooter turned the gun on themselves. So we are still waiting to learn who that shooter was. Again, a sniper from a building nearby. This is the latest from ICE officials this morning as well. Staying on top of all of this for you. Very developing at this point as we wait for more information. Again, just to give you a little perspective of this, we're told this is a facility, a temporary one that operates 24/7, an ICE facility there. It is staffed with agents. Detainees are brought in there, and they're also taken to more permanent facilities too. It's an admin office, a temporary holding area where initial processing happens before they're taken to a more permanent location. And again, for us here at home, to give you perspective, Dallas, a very large area here. I looked it up this morning. This is about 4 miles from Dallas Love Field Airport. So to give you some perspective, if you know that area of Dallas. Again, at 10 o'clock is when our time, 9 o'clock Texas time, is when we were expecting an update from Chief Como there in Dallas. So we are waiting for some more information. WFAA, our sister station in Dallas, is staying on top of this as well. We're streaming that live for you too, and we are awaiting those comments. So I want to take you back to their coverage this morning. Those anchors are talking a little bit about what they know about this. Again, this is a developing story. We're waiting for confirmation from police this morning. We've had mixed reports as to how many people were killed. Dallas police confirming online, although we do expect an update from them in just moments, that at least 1 person was killed. It does appear that it was a detainee who was hit, and that sniper then turned the gun on themselves. So again, following this from Dallas today. I'm going to let you go back to the coverage with WFAA as we await that update from the chief of police there in Dallas.
They don't feel like there is any other threat to the public right now.
Yeah, my sources are saying that initially, like it happens a lot in these situations, they thought that there might be multiple snipers, but then they found that one person on the roof and they've had nothing else. So I do believe that it is just one person.
Okay.
Again, Rebecca Lopez, our senior crime and justice reporter, has been with us all morning long updating us. And want to welcome Jason Whiteley to the desk as well, because you have been looking at a couple of different angles as well to kind of shed some light on what we've learned this morning.
Yeah, you know, politically, we're trying to find out exactly, like everyone else, what was a potential motive here. I don't think there's any question at all. This was an act of political violence here. Clearly, there's been an increased number of attacks on law enforcement, on ICE officers, on lawmakers, and on different political groups. So I'm hearing from talking to a number of different congressmen this morning, members of Congress, to tone things down. Everyone catch their breath here. We're going to hear from one congressman here in the next hour, next 45 minutes. Congressman Mark Vesey represents this district. He's going to join us here in our live coverage as soon as he's able to get to a telephone. But we're also hearing from others who say, listen, this situation is terrible there. We don't know enough yet about who did this, about why that person did this. And until we do, they didn't want to say much more to, in fear of inflaming the situation, of course.
And reading some of the different tweets from different, I know we read one earlier from Senator Cruz, Senator Cornyn. It seems like a lot of people are focusing on, prayers to the individuals and talking about law enforcement who rushed those people in their cruisers to the hospital.
Yeah, and law enforcement, and Rebecca, you've mentioned this too, law enforcement was very lucky that they did not get injured in this. The Sallyport area, seeing inside this secure facility, it's a small area where the shooter was aiming, and there's law enforcement all around guarding these detainees, regardless of whether these are violent detainees or not. Law enforcement is there consistently. So the fact that law enforcement either was not targeted or was not shot, they are very fortunate for that.
Absolutely, and that's what my sources are saying, that they are lucky that there were no law enforcement officers that were injured in this situation.
We do understand, though, that the shooter took his own life before law enforcement even, I think, got a rooftop, we believe, got up on that facility?
Yeah, he was up on the rooftop, my sources are saying, and shooting down at that facility. And then DPD immediately started checking the rooftops. And that's very brave of those officers, because at the time they didn't know if there was one. Yeah, they don't know where it's coming from. There's one sniper, two snipers. And so they're going on top of those rooftops to check and try to really take out the suspect. I mean, that is what they're doing. They're trying to end the threat, and that's what they do. They go into the line of fire to try and take the threat out. But when they got up on top of that roof, the suspect had already died. He had apparently died of an inflicted gunshot
But think
wound.
also how many federal law enforcement facilities there are in North Texas, in Dallas and Fort Worth, and the mid-cities as well. How many local law enforcement facilities there are. This is clearly going to change protocol. I'm not sure exactly how it will change protocol, but something as simple as loading or unloading detainees from a bus, very routine. It happens at every jail, at every police department, everywhere. That is going to change starting now, immediately.
And Jason, this is a facility where there have been protests in the past.
Sure.
It's a facility that is often targeted because that is where people know that detainees go first. And so it is a very prominent facility when it comes to where the detainees go. And so whenever there are people that are wanting to protest on either side, either for ICE or against ICE, that is the facility where they go.
We are, again, waiting to hear from officials on the ground here in Dallas, but we did get some sound from the acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, Todd Lyons. I want to let you hear what he had to say this morning.
Any more information on the suspect here?
No, we haven't heard anything yet. We're still waiting to hear from the locals who are securing the scene at a location away.
Or any of that?
No, not yet.
What about the victims?
So we're still working with the victims right now. 3 we're taking to local hospitals. I am hearing, though, that there are fatalities right now. Obviously our thoughts and prayers are going out to everyone in that scene. Kind of we were talking before we came on, that's the office I grew up in. I know exactly that area. It was a secure location. The shooter obviously fired into a spot where our officers and agents would be inside of a secure location, where we're doing a lot of our process with our arrested individuals. So it's definitely a scary time, especially with this increase of violence against law enforcement. It's just, it's very stressful right now.
But you say all officers and agents are accounted for, so the victims are not officers or agents?
They're not employees of ICE. We are getting preliminary reports that some of our detainees are possible contract staffers. We're still working through that. Obviously, it's still fluid as far as notifying families and things like that. But
See, you mentioned a secure location, and you talked about how, protocol will have to change because even in a secure location, the rooftops weren't secure.
They are, and like for Dallas County Jail, for instance, and for the larger facilities, a lot of these are in actual garages where a garage door will open, a vehicle will drive in, load people up, and then drive out. But this one clearly was not like that, and there are a lot of them that are not like that. These were non-violent people, most likely, who were being loaded or unloaded from the vehicle. That's the concern here, and this is another frightening moment for law enforcement and for the political tone in this country right now.
Yeah, and Jason, one of my sources is texting me saying that DPD used a drone to go up and search those rooftops as well. Yeah. So that was probably they obviously do that to make sure that before they send officers in. So it may not have been the case where the officers are, but they definitely rushed up to that roof and they were rushing to the scene and they transported some of the victims in their own vehicles. Those officers did, in fact, put themselves, in the line of fire because there's still, shootings going on. But they did use apparently a drone to check those rooftops.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we're going to get to Morgan Young right now. She's been joining us periodically for some different contexts. Morgan, we were talking about this facility, and you were giving us some insight there earlier. We understand you have some new statements for us.
Yeah, I do. I just kind of want to walk through. We're getting statements continuously on social media. So just some of our elected officials on the federal and local and state level. We've heard from Senator John Cornyn, who posted to X saying, horrific. While law enforcement investigates, I am keeping everyone impacted in my prayers. My staff have been in touch with federal and local officials in Dallas, and we will make sure all resources are brought to bear in the investigation. Thank you to all first responders who rushed to the scene. And just wanting to keep going through those, we have Representative Mark Vesey, who says, my office is aware of this developing situation and will continue to monitor the situation. We are keeping the victims in prayer and will update the North Texas community as we get news on their conditions in Lear. And of course, this is his district, and as Jason just said, we are going to hear from him shortly. Continuing to go through those, we have Attorney General Kim Paxton saying, join me in praying for the victims of this heinous shooting. We will continue to do everything in our power to combat the alarming increase of targeted attacks against ICE and all law enforcement by evil, twisted individuals. Taking a look now at Senator Ted Cruz's statement, who says, my team and I are closely monitoring the situation at the ICE detention facility in Dallas. We are praying for the swift recovery of those injured, and we are deeply grateful to, it's cut off there, we are deeply grateful to the brave first responders who rushed to the scene. That's the rest of his statement. And of course, we have Vice President J.D. Vance tweeting, the obsessive attack on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop. I am praying for everyone hurt in this attack and for their families. And we have Secretary Kristi Noem, who says there was a shooting this morning at the Dallas ICE field office. Details are still emerging, but we can confirm there were multiple injuries and fatalities. Finishing her statement here, the shooter is deceased by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and then goes off, continues to condemn violence against ICE law enforcement. Those are just some of the statements that we're hearing. But one of the things that we've been talking about this morning is the use for this facility. Jason was just talking about how this facility is different than other ones that we've seen. And I think one of the things we wanted just to remind people as we're talking about this is that this is more of a regional hub. This is not a place where detainees are kept for a long period of time. As Rebecca said just a few minutes ago, this is really the first stop that detainees go to, and sometimes they are released. Other times they are transferred somewhere else. So the very first time, in the very first instance where someone is detained, this is the first stop where they are processed, their paperwork is done. So you just heard Jason said that there's a good chance these were not violent individuals. These were people who were really making their first stop in this immigration process.
We talked a little bit earlier about the geographic location of that facility, Morgan. Do you have any sense yet, just from looking at the map, about where that shooter might have been, the distance from that facility? Have you gotten a sense of that yet?
I don't. And, that is going to be such an important part of this investigation. And it's a great question. And I think it will definitely tell an even better picture of what happened here. But that's going to be a big part of this investigation as well. We're not sure on that quite yet. And I can actually tell you that this regional facilities page on this federal website website actually seems to have been taken down or is not working at this time. Not sure if that is because of this or if this had already been the case, but when we looked this morning, it's not available online.
And do we know at this point how many people are, unloaded and loaded periodically throughout the day or per day?
So the federal data that we have about the number of people in the facilities for ICE are actually the number of the people who are in those more long-term detention facilities. So, for example, we have a number of the people who are in who are detained in our jail in Dallas County. But this facility, again, is not supposed to even hold people for longer than 12 hours. So we actually don't have those numbers. Think of this as kind of coming in, checking in, getting a determination from ICE, and then moving on. So we don't actually have a number for how many people would be there at this time.
But if you even just think about 12-hour, windows of time, then you are seeing quite a large number of people moving in and out, unless they just have like a, one drop off, one pickup a day, that kind of a thing, which of course we are waiting to get information on. But there may be quite a bit of movement, whether or not the shooter targeted this specific pickup, transferring detainees onto and off of those buses. That all remains to be seen. But at 6:40, when we started getting the call, it was still pretty dark outside here. So it sounds like, someone got there probably in the dark of night up on that rooftop before the shots were fired.
All right, Morgan Young, thanks for your added perspective there. Listen, we have senior political reporter Jason Whiteley joining us, senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez with us right now for some additional perspective. I constantly see both of you checking your phones, so I know you're getting updates this morning.
Well, just two quick things here. Great question. I think one of you asked a moment ago about where the shooter might have been perched here, and you may have been looking as well. If you know this area of Interstate 35, there's a Schlotsky's there, there's apartments on the other side of it. There's not a lot of places unless you potentially shoot across from the freeway, but you wouldn't do that because the Sally Port is on the back side of this building. If you look on, I'm just looking on Google Maps here to kind of see what's around it. There are a number of attorneys' offices on the back side of this, on the west side of this, on Empire Central, and it looks right across the parking lot towards the Sally Port. Of course, things will change there.
I looked at the map earlier, and at least according to the version of Google Maps I looked at, the Mexican consulate is not far from that area as well. So you have a pretty heavy concentration of a variety of, you mentioned Schlotsky's restaurants, law offices, perhaps the consulate too. It's a very commercial area. There are law enforcement offices there.
Yeah, and my sources are saying that it was a building where there is an immigration attorney. Not that may have nothing. It might have been the closest building to that facility, and he referred to it as the IE building or old building. I don't know what that means. So
I'm not sure what that is.
So I was trying to Google that, but it looks like that person was shooting from on top of that building where there are at least offices and shooting down into that Sally Port area where that bus was.
Let me add one more thing that Todd Lyons, who is the acting director of ICE, we just had on a few moments ago. I have the transcript from that interview we did with ABC News within the last hour. And the last thing that Mr. Lyons said here is I think we still need to focus on what we've been doing, which is using intelligence-based specific targets, going after the worst of the worst. Is still doing that law enforcement, boots on the ground type stuff. Here's the problem with that. Rebecca, you know this as well too. That is great, and they do a lot of hard work finding those people. But lately, we have seen the people committing these attacks are not those individuals that were on the radar of law enforcement. And that's where things get scary for law enforcement. That's where things should get a little frightening for the rest of us here. The people behind these attacks are not the people the cops know.
Well, that's exactly right. And that happens a lot in these mass shootings. Oftentimes, there might have been a warning, there might not have been. They're the lone wolf type. Those are the people that they're concerned about. It's not necessarily usually an organized group that leads these attacks. And it is also important to know that we do not know for sure that if they were targeting the detainees or targeting law enforcement. And there has been a lot of rhetoric against immigrants and against detainees as well. So it's, right now we just have to wait to see what DPD and law enforcement says. But we do recall the 23 people were shot at the El Paso Walmart as well that were targeted in a hate crime. So we don't know if this is politically motivated or hate motivated at this time.
And we're waiting on that press conference to start. We were told it was going to be around 9 o'clock, but as soon as it does, we're going to break in with that and we'll get that information from DPD. Right now, though, our other big story this morning has to do with the weather. A cool front moving in that's bringing a lot of rain and is impacting everyone across our viewing area. Greg, where is the biggest impact right now?
All right, Dallas, heading into weather, they're monitoring that this morning, too. I want to give you an update here at home as you're following this. Again, we are waiting an update from Dallas police. That was scheduled to happen at 9 o'clock their time, 10 o'clock our time. Again, very delayed at this point as they work to learn all of the information here of a developing story after this early morning shooting. Having listened to what they're reporting down there, this is Dallas ICE, a field office there. It's a temporary location. Right now, reports are kind of mixed, but what we have heard this morning is that 3 people were shot there. 1 person was killed, and this was a sniper attack. Somebody on a roof nearby, that person turned the gun on themselves, and police were able to search the rooftops in the area there using a drone. They are reporting that there's no other event. They're not worried about the public at this point because that shooter is down again, but right now we're still working to piece together why this happened, what the motive was this morning. It does appear that it was detainees that were hit, but again, we're waiting for some clarification from Dallas police. We're expected to hear from Chief Como there anytime this morning. You can see the podium is set up there, a makeshift spot there near a FedEx office, not far from where this happened. To give you some perspective, again, this is a temporary location in Dallas, the Dallas ICE field office. We're told that's really the first place where these detainees come in. It's a temporary facility that operates 24/7. We're told it's staffed with agents. Detainees are brought there. It's usually their first stop where they're processed. Their paperwork is done. There's an admin office there, and it acts as a temporary holding spot, initial processing before those detainees are taken to a more permanent facility. You can see reporters in the area just doing some mic checks right now. This is the scene there, heavy police presence. But again, that shooter is down this morning. They're not searching for anybody else that we know of right now. Again, waiting for more clarity from police. From here in Tampa, as we monitor this in Dallas, to give you some perspective, I looked this up, where the location is that they've zeroed in on this morning. That's about 4 miles from Dallas Love Field Airport, just to give you some perspective of the area. Obviously a very large city there. It happened just after 6 o'clock their time this morning. Again, we are waiting on a news conference to hopefully learn more. I've been monitoring Dallas Police's X account this morning, too, where they have been posting the latest details. Several others are weighing in on this, too, calling for the end of political violence and rhetoric here. But we don't know what the motive is yet. Again, we're still waiting to learn more details. All that we've been told is that this was a sniper attack, somebody on a roof nearby that was shooting down at these detainees. They apparently were being either loaded or unloaded from a bus at the time during when this all happened. And I want to again give you the latest from Dallas police. They are saying that they do plan to update us momentarily, but in terms of the details, they say at 6:40 a.m. Dallas police responded to an assist officer call, and that the preliminary investigation determined that a suspect opened fire at a government building from an adjacent building. Again, we're told that was a rooftop. 2 people were transported to the hospital with gunshot wounds. 1 victim died at the scene. The suspect is deceased. Again, there have been mixed reports on how many people were killed this morning, but that's the latest from Dallas police. That's over an hour ago that they updated us about this, calling this an ongoing investigation. And we are expecting an update with that media briefing. I want to take you back to our sister station, WFAA, which is staying on top of this in Dallas for us. We're streaming that live for you. And again, awaiting the latest news conference from Dallas police that we hope to hear more momentarily.
This morning, it is now almost 9:30. Just about 15 minutes ago, they said that they're actually waiting for Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson to get here. So that's kind of been the holdup at this point. But we've seen a number of the major players already out here. Just a few minutes ago, I saw Dallas Police Chief Daniel Como being briefed by his department out here. I've also seen representatives from ICE as well as the FBI as we wait for this press conference to start. And one of the big things that we're hoping to get from this is more clarification on the casualties in this. You know, we've heard a couple of different numbers about the number of people hurt, the number of people killed. So we are hoping to get an exact figure for that to report to you all. As you can see, the scene very, very active scene still right now. Looking down this way, you see all the flashing lights. Again, we're a little ways away from that ICE facility, but you can see just the vastness of the scene at this point. Still a lot of questions this morning. I know that you've heard from so many of my colleagues just about what goes into an investigation like this one, the many questions about the motive here, which we still have no insight into at this point. We're hoping to get some insight into that in just a few minutes when this press conference does finally start. Again, we'll be out here live taking that press conference for you with the latest and break down everything that is said during it. So I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, Janelle, thanks for that added perspective. We appreciate it coming back in the studio right now.
Yeah, and you know, of course, we all want to hear what's going on, but they're trying to make sure they have the facts together, make sure they're, you know, communicating with Washington, D.C. We just heard from the acting ICE director a few moments ago, didn't know a lot more than what we were reporting here locally. Members of Congress we're talking to, the senators representing Texas, they don't know a lot more than what we're talking about locally. So a lot of the information is coming from here, but since it's a federal facility, they want to, of course, make sure that everyone there knows first what's going on before it's relayed to the public here in Dallas.
Oh yeah, and there's so many different aspects of this because you've got the crime scene where the shooter was, and then you've got where the detainees were shot. So you've got and you've got to also talk to the officers. They're probably also looking at body camera, looking at footage to get a better picture of what happened before they come out and say anything. And they're going to check with federal partners, state partners, and obviously all the DPD officers that were out there at the scene as well.
And Rebecca, you've covered many of these, but what usually is also happening simultaneously at these events, there's usually a raid on an apartment or a house wherever this individual who was the shooter lived. And they're likely doing that as we speak, providing that person had any identification on him at the time that he took his life.
Yes, and also going through the social media posts and all that. As we remember in the Allen shooting, the shooter did have social media. It was not visible to anyone, but he had a lot of rhetoric on there that eventually led law enforcement to understand, you know, who he was and why he did what he did in Allen. So as happens sometimes in, you know, mass shootings, they are going through everything that they can find about this person as well. And that will probably come later on where we know more about who the shooter is. I think what DPD is probably going to come out right away and say is just exactly how many victims there were and what they saw, what the officer saw at the scene.
I do think it's interesting, though. I mean, here we are. This happened. I think the call came in around 6:41, and we're about 3 hours in. And they do get a lot of information pretty quickly now that we have the digital age and what they can streamline in and find out from people and witnesses. We seem to have a good insight pretty quickly nowadays.
Yeah, and along with, you know, terrific sourcing like Rebecca has as well, we do have a good idea what's going on. But I think what's critical right now is looking to preserve any evidence that law enforcement can at this point, especially when it comes to the shooter, any motive, whether there might be a wider threat to any other facilities in North Texas, in the state, or across the country.
And there might be a car that the shooter drove to the scene. They'll check license plates. They will check to make sure, you know, try to identify who this person is. And most likely the shooter probably did drive, and they probably already have a vehicle that they're looking at, as well as anything that they can learn about this person's past.
When it comes to the rain that we're seeing today, what kind of a role does that play in an investigation like this that you've seen before?
Yeah, well, they'll definitely be out there looking at every single shell casing. And if it rains really heavily, I mean, obviously it can impact the crime scene and and if it's lightning, you know, those officers then will have to, you know, step back. And so that could delay things. But I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people out there looking at these things.
And they also put up tents, they also put up other covers to preserve evidence, whether it's shells or whether it's any other fiber evidence, things like that might be on the roof. Anything else they could potentially use, they'll try to preserve that as best as possible. The rain certainly is exacerbating the situation.
And they'll also be looking at the firearms that this person used. They'll be trying to trace those right now. I'm sure by now ATF is definitely involved, and I know they're at the scene. And they'll be looking to see where this rifle was purchased, who purchased it, where did it come from, or all the weapons that were used out there, what he had on him.
It is remarkable, you know, kind of going back to the Charlie Kirk investigation, the speed at which some of these can go. And we talked earlier this morning about capturing people on camera, whether it's doorbell camera video, whether it's the cameras that are on some of the light poles and traffic lights around the area, that really it is mind-blowing just how much of these areas are blanketed by video surveillance. And I think that the average person doesn't have any clue to just how much video law enforcement has access to.
Absolutely. They're going to be looking at every single piece of video out there to figure out when the person got there, how long they were out there, all of that stuff.
And it's Dallas Police, it's DPS, Texas DPS. There's probably some other local agencies that might be assisting at this point. There's also the FBI, ATF is no doubt involved in this. And of course, ICE is a federal law enforcement agency as well. And I said early on when I joined in the past 35 minutes or so here, these are dangerous times politically for the country. These are dangerous times to be in law enforcement. These are also dangerous times to be an immigrant in this country, and today proved that with these people targeted, simply, getting on or off this vehicle already in federal custody. It's also dangerous for a lot of people in this country.
So Jason, go ahead.
Jason, most likely those, and what usually happens is they are in what looks like a chain gang. So they will have shackles and handcuffs on them. So they most likely were detained in shackles and handcuffs when the shooting happened. So they were, pretty defenseless out there.
I know you mentioned this when you got on here about 30 minutes ago, but for people who are just joining us, what have you seen as the political tone this morning? I know there's been a lot of tweets that have gone out, a lot of messages. What are you hearing right now?
Everyone, I'm talking to Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill in D.C., and everyone is just really saying this is a horrific incident, and they don't want to really come out and say anything until we have a clear idea of what's going on. I think everyone, especially after what happened to Charlie Kirk, after what happened to Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, his house being firebombed, after the state lawmakers in Minnesota were murdered in their own homes and their families as well. I think, despite cable news, despite social media here, there is an understanding among elected officials maybe to tone things down a tad, even though that might not be happening everywhere. But people are seeing the consequences of this, the very real consequences of this that this country is going through right now. That the recognition that this is happening from elected officials is certainly a good thing. One thing Congress is debating right now before the end of the month is what 8 days, not 6, 7 days from now, is whether to allocate an additional $88 million for their own security, for additional security for law enforcement. There are spouses of elected members of Congress who say, listen, the one person we have, if that's how my husband or wife wants to do it, the one person we have looking out for this member of Congress isn't enough. We saw what happened in Utah. We saw what happened in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. We need more people. So Congress is debating whether to put $88 million towards more security.
Well, and just like this type of atmosphere doesn't ramp up immediately, it takes time. It would take time to slow it down as well. So here's hoping that we get some information soon that maybe leads to cooler heads prevailing here, and that we can move in that direction. But I think you speak to something a lot of us are feeling is, boy, you want to put the phone down and get outside for a little bit, and maybe just remember that we are all in this together.
And the scary times, even local officials have a detail. I mean, the mayor has always traveled with detail, but they have a lot of around the mayor right now, a lot of security.
All right, I understand we need to get to Natalie Haddad right now, so she's at the staging area. There's going to be a press conference at any moment. We're just waiting for the right officials to arrive is what our understanding is. Natalie, what can you tell us?
Hey, good morning to you. Yeah, I've been asking Dallas Police media relations team all morning long an estimated time on this press conference. We were initially told 9 o'clock, then 9:30, but right now we are waiting on Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson to arrive before this presser begins. I imagine they will brief him as well. There is a lot of traffic off North Stemmons Freeway. I can only imagine that may be the holdup. Just want to go over some of the details of what we know of how this unfolded. Preliminary information, want to stress that because this press conference we were hoping to get more concrete information. We know 3 wounded at the ICE facility, 2 confirmed dead, 1 sniper found shot on the roof of a nearby immigration attorney's office, self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, this all unfolded shortly before 7 a.m. around 6:40. Sources here at the scene tell me that DPD officers had an eye on the shooter. They were pushing up against the building where he was, and that is when he took his life with the self-inflicted gunshot wound. Pardon me while I make sure that, okay, I thought I heard something behind us about the presser. But again, we are still waiting on that press conference to begin. We are waiting here alongside North Stemmons Freeway and Empire Central Drive, just outside of a fast food restaurant, just waiting for this to begin, hoping to get more concrete details on what unfolded, how it came to be, and what comes next in this investigation as well. We know it's going to be very lengthy. Roads all around this area still closed off. When we were first on air just after 7 a.m., we were not even half a mile down the street. It took us 20 minutes to come just a block or two down this this way to the fast food restaurant where we are set up now because of so many road closures that law enforcement are just keeping people away from. Active scene still down the way. Hard to see from where we are right now. I think it might be a little too crowded, but we can still see an enormous amount of police units. We know FBI is on here, SWAT was here. The source I was speaking to I know is cleared, so some have left, but still a lot of lights and sirens still down that way, not anticipating that to be clearing up anytime soon. So again, what we know is preliminary information. This unfolded around 6:40 in the morning. When we first got here at 7:40, just after 7 a.m., we were still seeing law enforcement making their way here to the scene, closing off roads. We know that 3 were shot, 2 confirmed dead, a sniper also dead, found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the roof of an adjacent building, an immigration attorney's office. We will be live streaming this press conference, streaming here on WFAA, plus so certainly stay with us. We have plenty of questions for DPD and maybe even the mayor, so stick with us here. I'll send it back to you in studio.
Okay, Natalie. Hey, we're going to bring up a map for you. So one of the things we were talking about, I mean, if you're watching us from up in Frisco or, out in Tarrant County, you're like, explain to me where this is and what it looks like. So we're going to zoom in and give you a better perspective on where this facility is and potentially looking at the buildings around it. I'm not sure if this helps you guys out at all. I know that we've been pulling up our Google Maps on the phone. Well, really to give you some better perspective, right?
Yeah, it's so this ICE facility just west of Interstate 35, and Interstate 35 kind of travels, if you go from downtown Dallas, it angles again toward northwest in that direction. So this is just northwest of downtown Dallas. I don't know, what do you think, guys? Maybe 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5, 6 minutes, even more, zooming out more than that. This is about 5 minutes, 10 minutes west of Dallas Love Field is where this is. At 35 and Mockingbird is the closest place for this. To give you your bearings on where this is happening. Natalie and Janelle and our cameras, I believe we're on the north side of that. You can see the exit there from Mockingbird Lane. So they're on the north side looking down. That's how close that law enforcement will allow them at this point, because they're still looking for evidence right now to see if there's something else that they could be finding.
Well, you said before that this facility is one that if you don't realize it's there, you've driven past it countless times if you are here in Dallas and never thought twice about it. It's kind of a nondescript building, as you saw on the map there, right next to the freeway, and you wouldn't know it was there if you didn't have that information already.
Absolutely, and I've been to that facility multiple times for various protests, both pro and anti-ICE. There are usually when people are going to protest anything that's happening when it comes to ICE, that's the facility where they go. And there were protests this summer out there. So it is known to the people that are protesters, that know where the detainees are going. So it is known to some people.
Right.
And they were putting out a lot of flyers over the internet about this particular facility at the time that people were protesting some of the aggressive law enforcement from ICE.
It's certainly not a secret location. People know where it is, but it's also nondescript. It's a federal
You're not
government
hiding
building.
it when you put it right
Correct.
next to the
Right.
35.
There's not a giant sign that says exit here for the ICE facility off
right.
35E. So people who know it's there certainly know it's there, and anybody who would have an issue with this, like this person involved in the shooting today clearly did, would certainly know it's there too.
Yeah, and my sources, again, are saying that it appears it was the detainees that were being targeted. And we know that those are the people that are injured. No law enforcement was injured. And the suspect took his own life. So we may or may not ever know the actual motive, other than, depending on what law enforcement finds in this person's background.
Any insight into that conclusion, into why that may be what your source is telling you?
Yeah, no, not at this time. There's just so much investigating still to be done.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly, zoom out again here and know what the political rhetoric is against immigrants, whether here in this country legally or illegally. There is certainly ramped up rhetoric against them over the last decade, and this is likely going to be a byproduct of that.
You mentioned an increase in security for, different figures, political figures.
Yeah.
When you see incidents like this happen, even though potentially the target was, detainees, does that increase the likelihood of getting this passed, or they're going to increase the amount of funding for these folks?
We had Congressman Keith Sell from Collin County in yesterday. We were talking to him for an upcoming episode of Inside Texas Politics, and one of the points he made is that there are some Republicans who think that we don't necessarily need this extra money to protect us. We already have some money allocated, and there's enough usually to put either one person to hire one guard to be around you, especially after what happened to Gabby Giffords a decade ago in Arizona. Or you can use the money to increase your ADT coverage, your burglar alarm at home, or cameras around your house. You can use it for whatever you want to use it for. But up until today, some of the debate, especially on the Republican side, was, do we really need this extra money? Are there other things that we can be doing to protect ourselves, to be more aware of what's happening in our surroundings?
You mentioned Gabby Giffords, by the way. She posted earlier about her heartbreaking for the victims of this morning's shooting at the facility, and we're seeing a chorus of voices kind of speak up. I can imagine, though, that when you have incident after incident after incident, and you build this infrastructure of, well, we just don't know when and where people are going to strike, and you just have to be vigilant at all times. That is not the society that we want to live in, but it's what we're dealing with right now.
And a lot of this also always has a mental health component to it. Typically, the person, some people are evil, but there are other people that have been suffering through mental health crisis, and then they listen to whatever rhetoric, or they're on social media and they're listening, or they're indoctrinated, or whatever is happening in that person's life that somehow triggers them to do something like this. Yeah. And unfortunately, there are innocent people whose lives are impacted by it.
Well, we also talked about protocol too, and protocol for this facility being in a secure location, and you foresee that changing as well.
I think there's no question it has to change. I mean, here's one of the things that have changed with presidential arrivals. Used to, there would be even in the past 10 years or so, the president would show up to a location. It would all be clear all around him, 3 or 4 blocks around, and the president would get out of the vehicle and walk into the back door, walk into the front door of a hotel or a venue. But if you notice, about 10 years ago, the presidential limousine now pulls in to a tent if the presidential limousine is not at the White House, or even at the White House. They'll pull into a white tent. That way, anyone around them, if they have high-powered optics or scopes to be able to look in and see what's going on, they don't know when the person gets out of the vehicle. Things will clearly change. That's a cheap, affordable way to change things, putting up tents around it so you don't know what's happening and when. But things have changed. The presidential security protocols have changed over the last few years. I don't know if there was a security incident that changed that or not, but it certainly makes sense why you'd want to protect the President of the United States by doing that.
We are, again, as we told you, waiting on the press conference on the scene there, or at least near the scene next to Interstate 35, and you can see the kind of assembled spot where they've got the microphones ready and waiting. But Morgan Young, I believe, is in our newsroom right now. She's been kind of following the story all morning long and has an update for us. Morgan, I know we've been working the phones, making calls, trying to gather as much information as possible. What have you got for us?
Well, Mark, we actually just received a statement from social media from the governor, Greg Abbott, just in the past couple of minutes. He wrote on X, Texas fully supports ICE. Both the Texas Department of Public Safety and Texas National Guard work closely with ICE. This assassination will not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants. We will work with ICE and the Dallas Police Department to get to the bottom of the assassin's motive. We will offer ICE additional support to assist their operations. Again, Governor Greg Abbott, this is our first time seeing or hearing him chime in on social media to this incident. He posted about 3 minutes ago, really doubling down on ICE's operations and calling this shooting this morning an assassination, and calling the person who did it an assassin, and saying that the state's resources will be fully behind ICE's operations in Dallas. Back to you.
Yeah. Thank you for the update this morning, Morgan. And we also, I mentioned the posts on social media from politicians across the spectrum. We heard from the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, Tim Lyons, a little bit earlier. I believe he was speaking to ABC News officials. I want to play that sound for you.
Well, any more information on the suspect here?
No, we haven't heard anything yet. We're still waiting to hear from the locals who are securing the scene at a location away.
Or any of that?
No, not yet.
What about the victims?
So we're still working with the victims right now. 3 we're taking to local hospitals. I am hearing, though, that there are fatalities right now. Obviously our thoughts and prayers are going out to everyone in that scene. Kind of we were talking before we came on, that's the office I grew up in. I know exactly that area. It was a secure location. The shooter obviously fired into a spot where our officers and agents would be inside of a secure location, where we're doing a lot of our process with our arrested individuals. So it's definitely a scary time, especially with this increase of violence against law enforcement. It's just, it's very stressful right now.
But you say all officers and agents are accounted for, so the victims are not officers or agents?
They're not employees of ICE. We are getting preliminary reports that some of our detainees are contract staffers, we're still working through that. Obviously, it's still fluid as far as notifying families and things like that. But
Okay, Tim Lyon, Acting Director of Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, and I saw both of you here working your phones. You've been busy on them all morning long. Have you gotten any updates?
Not specifically about this so far. Rebecca's the one closer to the law enforcement investigation. I mean, the one thing I would add from the rest of that interview with Todd Lyons there, the Acting Director of ICE, who originally worked in this office before going to Washington, D.C., he said, we're still making sure we put the hands on the doors, the boots on the pavement, and going out looking for these threats. The problem with this is we have seen lately the last handful of these high-profile shooters or snipers have not been people on the radar of law enforcement, and that's a problem. That's something the law enforcement clearly would like to figure out how to get in front of, but they haven't been able to do that so far.
And that's very scary. You know, I went through the FBI Citizens Academy to understand a little bit better, you know, from law enforcement perspective as well. And they often talk about the biggest threat in the U.S. are the lone wolf, the people that are, you know, here in the United States, not necessarily outside agitators from other countries. It's typically, and when you see the mass shootings in this country, when you see these types of political violence or hate crimes, they are homegrown and often loners.
Well, we talk a lot about the rise of social media, but sometimes it's the social media that we're not all on. It's the Discord, it's the 4chan, it's the places where you can kind of go see some of the chatter. We saw that, you know, again, headlines after the Charlie Kirk shooting, and it crops up every now and then. The radicalization that is not necessarily on law enforcement's at least direct radar. It's hidden sometimes in the shadows, on the dark web, et cetera, and it's easy to understand why that would be so concerning to law enforcement, because it is so difficult to monitor and there is so much of it.
Well, that last thing you said is the problem. There's so much of it, and a lot of it might not look like an actual threat at the time.
Right.
And there are so many channels on it. Now, you know, make sure you know that, as Rebecca Wells knows, law enforcement is in all these corners of the internet, but how do you know if somebody just sounding off, which is their First Amendment right to do, is a real threat or not?
And sometimes family members may know, but they are hesitant to call law enforcement, or a friend knows because they don't want to be the person that outs that person. And so sometimes there is a hesitancy, and that is why law enforcement says, if you think someone is a threat or they're telling you, I'm going to do this, you should call law enforcement.
Or they think that my son could never do this, my daughter could never do this, or my dad or mom could never do something like this. And you always think it couldn't happen.
Right.
But law enforcement is still saying, if you have any, you know, suspicion at all, please let us know so we can at least look into it.
Yeah, again, it remains to be seen if this shooter had a presence on social media and if this played a role at all in what happened today. But it speaks to some of the bigger issues that you both have brought up. And, you know, we had a big First Amendment discussion this past week about FCC regulation of the airwaves. A slightly different one is about how social media networks enforce or don't enforce ideas about policy and content moderation. And again, this is what happens when you've got free speech. Do you investigate it? How do you handle it? These are tricky questions. And again, with the proliferation of all of this, you're having to answer them more and more often than ever before.
And you know, after January 6, 2021, social media tried to police itself. There was a backlash to that. Twitter was purchased by somebody else. Facebook dropped its different protocols. It's a fine line, because people either have this ability to sound off and to say what they want in a country like this, but do they have that ability on a privately owned network? But then the question becomes, well, is that a privately owned network, or is that the way we communicate right now?
Sure.
Is you know, AT&T a privately owned network, or do I need that in order to communicate with my family or friends or my job? That's where the debate comes down to. But I think that debate is going to continue on this. Still, there's so much still to know on this, but if you look at it from a broader perspective here, this clearly is an act of political violence when you look at this. Yeah. You know, there's no question about that when you look at who the targets were and the effort, clearly, that this individual took to try to take these shots.
And there's always consequences to some of the things that we say. If we are putting stuff out on the internet that is intended to harm people, is it, like you said, the responsibility of the big companies to take that stuff off? Do we police ourselves? I mean, it is, I see so much when I'm looking, I have to actually detach sometimes from social media because you see so much on both sides of people just arguing and angry and sometimes making threats. And again, law enforcement has its hands full trying to figure out what's going to trigger that one person that's going to then take it to that next level and incite violence.
Well, again, we have talked about this a lot, but the social media networks benefit when you are agitated and online. That is how they make their money. That is how they push some of those buttons that are just deeply wired in our human nature. And sometimes it benefits us to get off and go touch some grass. And whether or not that was a factor in today's events remains to be seen. But I do want to get to one of our reporters who is out on the scene this morning. Janelle Fort has been following this story almost since the moment we got the call. And you've got an update for us, I believe. Janelle, what's the latest?
So, I mean, we are still just waiting for this press conference to start. It was supposed to start at 9 o'clock this morning. It's 9:55 now. Initially, we were told that we were waiting for Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson. I have not seen him out here, but he may very well be here. I know all of these different agencies that are expected to speak are needing to be briefed before they head on into that press conference to be able to give the latest information. There have been a lot of varying reports about what exactly happened, the number of casualties. So I want to be very careful in talking about the number of people hurt here. The one thing that I do feel very confident reporting is that at least one shooter involved in this is dead. The fact that they've let us get this close and the fact that they are going to come over and talk to us kind of lets us know that this situation is very much so under control at this point. But there is a deep, deep investigation to be done into what happened early this morning. One of the big questions that we'll have in this press conference that hopefully they'll be able to answer for us is a motive for this. We do know that they've been saying that the people that have been shot in this were detainees. We are not sure if those were the intended targets of this attack. So still a lot of questions this morning. I know a lot of you at home are wondering if you're safe at this point. We will be sure to ask law enforcement about that this morning. So far this morning, I have seen Dallas Police Chief Daniel Como out here. I've also seen representatives from ICE and the FBI. We are expecting to hear from all of them in this press conference as soon as it gets started. There is a lot of really vital information that we're hoping to get to you, a lot of really vital questions we're hoping to answer about this really terrible and horrific instance that happened early this morning. So this press conference, again, we're waiting on it patiently. Hopefully it'll start soon, and hopefully we'll have a lot of answers for you guys about this attack this morning. Sending it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Janelle, thank you for the update and the insight. And we've got Morgan Young, who's been in our newsroom this morning gathering information. And Morgan, we understand that you've been reading a lot of different statements and different comments that have been coming in. What have you got for us right now?
Well, I do want to, because we just got the statement from social media from Governor Greg Abbott just a few minutes ago. So if you're just joining us, that is the latest statement from a big elected official that we have heard. So I do want to read that to you again. I don't know if we have a graphic, but about 12 minutes ago, Governor Abbott posted to X, Texas fully supports ICE. Both the Texas Department of Public Safety and Texas National Guard work closely with ICE. This assassination will not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants. We will work with ICE and the Dallas Police Department to get to the bottom of the assassin's motive. We will offer ICE additional support to assist their operations. You know, one of the things that we've seen in these statements all morning long, especially from some of our federal officials, at the state level as well, and some of our representatives, is really this doubling down of support of ICE and really saying that they believe or kind of calling out the violence that we've seen against ICE agents and in ICE facilities. And of course, when that is the statement, and then we also are hearing that it is a detainee who was shot, you know, there's a lot of talking on social media about what seems to be kind of a conflicting message here, and a lot of conversations, some people even saying that they have a description of who the shooter, who of course is killed this morning, who that person is. And of course, we don't have that information confirmed. So you were talking earlier about the dangers of social media and people just kind of talking and really fueling these conversations. So just to keep in mind, these are the statements we have. These are the facts that we have. And a lot of the things that we're seeing on social media may not be true. Just something else to point out too, we were told by sources, Rebecca was saying that her sources were telling her that the shooter who is been killed was found at the top of an immigration attorney office. Just taking a look at this area that's just surrounded by so many buildings, there are a number of attorney offices in this area, some that are very close to this office, some that are further away. And of course, those are likely strategically placed knowing that this facility is here. But there are a number of immigration attorney offices right around this area. So knowing which one is involved in this situation will be really important. Back to you.
All right, Morgan Young, thank you for that update. And again, kind of canvassing all the responses coming in across the political aisle. We have seen those calls for tamping down the rhetoric, expressing kind of the support and finding the common ground. And we talked about that a lot today, and you kind of heard Morgan reference that earlier.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that in the coming days here. This is, God forbid we have another one, but this is coming, 12 days, 13 days after what happened to Charlie Kirk. It comes a couple of months after what happened to the Minnesota lawmakers, and several months removed from that, from what happened to Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania with the firebombing of the governor's mansion. From talking to lawmakers, it sounds like people are going to be dialing it down. Now, whether that happens on cable news, whether it happens on our phones, on social media, that's not likely to happen, but at least there's that recognition of that. You know, one person we're waiting to hear from any moment now is Congressman Mark Vesey. He's a Democrat from Fort Worth, but his district, District 33, stretches over into this ICE facility, so he actually represents this. I know he is at a staff event with his staff right now, and they are going to be preparing to talk to us in just a few moments. But we also see a lot of activity right now out here at the press conference setup. Looks like they're going to be preparing to...
Yeah, they're moving the cameras for us, so...
Maybe getting a little closer here to hear from someone.
You know, and I'm also hearing now from some of the civil rights organizations like LULAC. They're about to put out a statement. They're obviously waiting to see, was this a hate crime, who was targeted, because there is a lot of fear among people and immigrants in this country about some of the rhetoric against immigrants. And so LULAC is very concerned. We see a Facebook post from Domingo Garcia, who is the former president of National LULAC. And again, we don't know at this point, was it politically motivated? Was it a hate crime? But there is a lot of concern among immigrants in this nation.
And rightfully there should be. I mean, these people, by all accounts, just having covered a number of ICE facilities over the years like you, these people were like almost 100% in hand shackles and leg shackles connected to each other as they were either getting on or getting off this bus. That's just ICE protocol when they're dealing with detainees. Whether they're violent or not, these people are kept like that. So they are sitting ducks in that sense. If one falls, if one tries to go somewhere, you're not getting out.
Right. As we continue to wait for this press conference, I want to reset. I noticed it was just after 10 o'clock, so if you're just joining us this morning, Marcus Took and Kara Sewell here, joined by our senior political reporter, Jason Whiteley, and our senior crime and justice reporter, Rebecca Lopez, bringing them on board because they've got not only great contacts, but great insight when it comes to the situation that we're following, this breaking news situation, the investigation ongoing as we wait for a press conference after this shooting at this ICE facility off of I-35 and Mockingbird. Yeah, and again, we talked about the weather that we are dealing with here in North Texas, potentially hampering the gathering of information, some of this investigation. And I know that we saw it fall quite a bit out in that area as we wait for the folks to finally get this press conference going. But we do want to check in with our meteorologist, Greg Fields, because this is the other story that is kind of affecting the main story today, Greg.
Yeah, we've had the widespread
rain. All right, they have storms in the
forward.
Dallas area as well, so they're breaking in with their weather coverage. We want to keep you informed with what's happening in Dallas, Texas right now after that early morning shooting at the Dallas ICE field office. Right now, we're waiting for a news conference that's scheduled to start any minute now. It had to be delayed. They were waiting for the mayor, Eric Johnson, to arrive there. Traffic in the area this morning, and very mixed reports on exactly what happened right now in terms of how many people were killed. We were told at least 3 people were shot. We do believe that they were detainees that were either being loaded or unloaded from a bus there at that facility in Dallas, Texas, early this morning, around 6:40 this morning, when a shooter from a nearby rooftop hit 3 of those people killing at least one of them and then turning the gun on himself. Now, we're learning some more details about all of this since early this morning. We just heard reports that that shooter was on top of an immigration attorney's office that was in the nearby area. Again, still waiting for all of this to be confirmed. That news conference with Dallas police is being set up right now. Officials making sure that those mics are up, so we will take it as soon as it begins, because there are a lot of questions that we want answered this morning. But again, as of what we know right now, it appears that 3 people were shot before the gunman turned the gun on himself. And let me give you a little details about what this facility is. This is where detainees are taken. It's a temporary facility, although we are told that it operates 24/7. No ICE agents, we're told, were hurt in this shooting, but again, we'll get more clarity in moments. The shooter turned the gun on himself, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The facility temporary operating 24/7. It is staffed with agents. Detainees are brought in there. That's the first stop for them. They're processed there. Their paperwork is done. It's a temporary holding area. And like I said, they were apparently shot as they were either being unloaded or loaded onto a bus. One of the anchors there in Dallas just saying that they were likely in hand shackles or leg shackles. So really they were sitting ducks at this point. We're waiting again to get some more clarity on why this happened, what the motive was. We don't know anything about the shooter other than that the shooter is dead and there is no apparent threat to the community, but they're waiting for the police to give us more information about that this morning. We have heard several tweets today. I want to read some of them for you now. Greg Abbott, the latest to weigh in on this, the governor of Texas, saying Texas fully supports ICE 100%. Both the Texas Department of Public Safety and Texas National Guard work closely with ICE. This assassination, is what he's calling it, will not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants. Although I do want to make clear that right now what we are being told is that these were detainees who were killed this morning. We are awaiting an update. You're taking a look there at the news conference that's being set up. That was scheduled to happen an hour ago, Texas time, so it is delayed. Again, they were waiting for the mayor of Dallas to get there. And to give you some more perspective, too, of the area, we had a map shown earlier this morning. This is northwest of downtown Dallas, not far from Dallas Love Field, about 4 miles from the airport, if you're familiar with that area of Dallas, next to the freeway in that area. So near the airport, not far from downtown Dallas, northwest of it. And a temporary facility there. Also, we're learning a little earlier this morning that on Mondays, they've had regularly scheduled protests there at this ICE facility. Many of them have been peaceful, but they've had reporters there in Dallas covering those events. They have happened apparently every Monday. They're regularly scheduled. They've been happening there at the facility, and they also have news conferences there. So the reporters in the area there in Dallas are very familiar with that facility. Again, it's not clear who the shooter was, why this happened, what the motive was behind this morning. We're hoping to learn more information. I'm going to get back to some of these tweets here. J.D. Vance, VP, has also tweeted about this obsessive attack on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop. I'm praying for everyone hurt in this attack and for their families, too. He was also retweeting Secretary Kristi Noem's tweet. She tweeted earlier some conflicting reports here. I just want to emphasize that because, again, we don't know how many people were killed. Dallas police say 1 person was killed of the 3 people shot, so 2 people taken to the hospital. 1 person died. That's what Dallas police reported more than an hour ago at this point. But Secretary Kristi Noem is saying there was a shooting this morning at the Dallas ICE government field office. Details still emerging. She says we can confirm that there were multiple injuries and fatalities. So we're going to get some more information in just moments this morning about that. I want to take you back to our continuing coverage with our sister station, WFAA. They've been reporting since early this morning that shooting happened at 6:40 their time, 7:40 our time. Again, they are monitoring the situation there. They've got some commentary for you that I want to let you listen into as we await the latest update from Dallas police, which we are expecting any minute.
Obviously checked and checked again and triple checked to make sure that all of the information that they're putting out is accurate.
And we might not be, learning too much more specific additional information right now, but, simultaneously what happens in these situations is there could be a search warrant being executed at the suspect's place of residence, in a house, apartment, somewhere like that. They're no doubt going through if the suspect went with a vehicle, went with a car. They're likely going through that right now. They're scouring the roof where this person took his own life after opening fire on the detainees as well. So there's a lot of things happening locally. You mentioned earlier, Mark, too, about social media. No doubt there are teams probably in Washington, D.C. right now picking apart this guy's digital life to try to find out anything they can about what might have led him to do this today.
Yeah.
And you've got ATF also involved looking at the weapons, or who, because that can also be traced, like where did the person buy the weapon, where did they get the gun, all of that kind of stuff.
And we talked about the FBI being involved as well. How do these agencies typically work in this sort of situation? How do they work together? How do they transfer, power, so to speak?
Yeah,
who takes over?
Well, right now there is a big command post out there, and DPD right now is still in charge of this case. So everything will defer to the chief and the Dallas Police Department at this point until perhaps it is transferred over. But murder is a state charge, so typically it is the locals. But since it happened on a federal facility, it could be taken over by the federal government as well and the FBI. But right now, they're all working together in a huge command post. And that was one of the things, if you remember, that was criticized in Uvalde. No one knew who was in charge, so everyone's running around. But it's very clear in the city of Dallas, immediately it is the Dallas Police Department that will be in charge, and everybody works with them to get the information out.
How is that decision made that another agency would take over, and when does that happen?
Yeah, well, because it happened in the city of Dallas, again, DPD will be the primary. Now, had this happened at a county facility, say this had happened over at the commissioner's court or something, then it would be the county. But because it happened in Dallas and there are victims that the Dallas Police Department is going to have to identify and work with the families, all of that, kind of those notices that are also going out, it will be Dallas Police.
And to add what Rebecca said about how they work together, there are a number of task forces with local, state, and federal law enforcement agents on them. I don't know how many, but I'd say a half dozen, if not more than that.
There's a bunch. There's a specific FBI one, there's a DEA one, there are task force in every single federal
And they're
agency.
doing everything from serving warrants on the worst of the worst to looking for drugs, but they're pooling all their information right now, and that's how they're going to narrow this down super fast. That's how they, it's how they narrowed down what happened to Charlie Kirk so quickly. Everyone pooled their resources together in law enforcement, and for high-profile events like this, which this clearly is, that's what's happening right now.
And the surveillance videos also that are all around this whole area that they've got to look at.
So again, the timeline, it was about 6:40 we got the call this morning, and I think we have all gotten used to finding out information so quickly. We get it very fast on our phone. We're only a few hours into this, but because of those resources, these surveillance cameras, all of the agencies involved, I feel like once we, kind of end the day later on, we should have quite a bit of information about the case and about the shooter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll have a much better picture within the next few hours.
Yeah, no doubt about that with what's going on, though.
From a political standpoint, we see a lot of our, congressmen, and we saw the vice president tweeting out, they make these statements, and then from there, what sort of role do they play? I mean, are they talking to law enforcement? We hear these statements, but then what?
Yeah, well, we do know, I've talked to probably a half dozen members of Congress this morning. Evidently, DPD, several have told me, sent out an email to these members of Congress, said, listen, this is what's going on, just so you know. But even after like what happened to with the deadly flash floods, the lawmakers need to figure out what happened. Is there a legislative solution to make us all safer? And right now, we just don't know enough about what happened yet, who did this, and what potential outcomes could be. And once we get a clearer picture today, tomorrow, in the coming days and weeks about who this was, what this person's digital footprint was, then they'll have a better understanding of whether there might be any action that lawmakers can take.
And they also immediately bring in, typically the FBI will bring in their, it's called something else, but I always refer to it as the behavioral science unit. They'll bring in those profilers as well, and they will start compiling a profile of who this person was.
Yeah.
Wanted to connect with one of our criminal justice experts that we talk to quite a bit here on WFAA, Alex Del Carmen, who is joining us now via Zoom. And we have talked a lot about the investigation, where it may stand right now, and just kind of the unique perspective of our resources here at WFAA. I want to check with you, Alex, though, and just find out your perspective on what we've seen this morning and where this investigation may stand.
Good morning. Well, right now we don't know what we don't know. What I mean by that is that we have no idea what the motive behind it was, but I can tell you right now that the FBI and local law enforcement authorities are working incredibly hard to find out what exactly prompted this person to start shooting at these individuals this morning. In addition to that, the bigger and the larger picture is, are there going to be other threats similar to this? Is this person working with other entities? How much of a threat is it to the other facilities, not only in the state of Texas, but throughout the United States?
And Alex, this is a very common thing, what we saw this morning with detainees either being boarded onto or offloaded off of a vehicle here. How does this shooting change what law enforcement does every day, whether it's local, state, or federal?
That's a great question. So every time we have a shooting of any sort, especially towards a law enforcement facility, what we do is we reassess and we find out exactly, what were the weak points, what were the loopholes, if any. And I'm estimating that this morning, after we do the investigation is completed and we figure out exactly what happened, there are going to be revisions to the protocol on how individual inmates are brought into the facility, loaded and unloaded as well, and whether or not there are vulnerabilities and points of vulnerabilities as it relates to outside influence or impact, in this case, by a shooter.
And then, Rebecca Lopez has been talking this morning as well about, what a central hub this Dallas facility was for ICE. It's clearly closed down right now. So with so much attention on moving undocumented immigrants out of this country, where does all this activity go to? To Fort Worth? Is there one over there that they could go to?
There are several facilities in the state of Texas that can actually provide, if you want to call it relief or immediate relief, while this facility is locked down and obviously there's an investigation going on. I presume that what's going to happen is all eyes and ears are going to be on the actual crime scene. We had storms this morning, as you know, and so that typically is bad news for those of us that look at crime scenes, particularly the ones that are outside of a building. And so there's the idea of preserving all of the things that took place this morning, be able to take pictures, be able to do forensic analysis, be able to do the social media sweeps, and the various other things that investigators are currently doing in order to figure out what happened. But I don't have any concerns that the process related to ICE is going to continue in the next day or two, since we have so many other options.
Can you talk a little bit about the concern that law enforcement has in this country when it comes to the lone wolf, the person that is triggered by something? Because when I talk to federal sources, they say that that's what they're most concerned about, not necessarily organized groups.
That's exactly right. And I've been a criminologist for 28 years and work very closely with law enforcement, as you guys know, and I can tell you that if somebody does ask me what keeps me up at night, that is exactly what keeps me up at night, is the idea that we have these individuals that are incredibly difficult to identify, very difficult to try to explain as to why or when they're going to commit a criminal act against an innocent person. And unfortunately, law enforcement is only limited to the degree that we can in order to be able to address it. So yeah, these unfortunately are going to continue to take place in our country, and we've got to get better at identifying them before they actually engage in a criminal act.
And when you see these shooters, they typically do have some sort of mental health component to the shootings.
Typically, and again, we go back into the Monday morning quarterbacking that we do, and we start asking people as to, did you know so and so, and then they begin to tell you how, they were secluded and how they had their own agenda and how they began to manifest their feelings online. The problem with that is that there are so many people that are doing that on an ongoing basis throughout the world. How do you sweep out those
Alex,
that are not?
I'm so sorry. I have to cut you off. I really apologize. The press conference we've been waiting for is set to begin. We've got Mayor Johnson at the podium, but thank you for your insight and for checking in with us this morning.
You see City Manager
Kim Tolbert.
Kim Tolbert's there, Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson shaking hands there with the ICE agent. Daniel Como is the Dallas Police Chief, gray hair, standing right next to the mayor, and it looks like a number of other federal officials, ATF standing behind them, Dallas Fire Rescue over there as well too. So I would presume that Daniel Como, the Dallas Police Chief, will be the one leading this press conference. There are a lot of folks here, which tells me that maybe there's going to be some more information, but let's hear what the mayor has to say here.
All right. Let me start off by saying that I'm a person who believes very, very strongly in the power of prayer, and that prayer changes things. And so I'm going to ask everyone, please join me in praying for the families of the folks who lost their lives today. Pray for the speedy recovery for those who are hurt and were injured in what happened today. But maybe even more to the point, we're a country and a city that needs prayer. So I'm going to ask you all to join me also in praying for this city, that we can come together at a time like this, and that we can be there for one another the way we always have in times like this, to support one another and help us all get through this very difficult time, not just in our city, but in our country. And that's why I'd ask you to pray for our nation. There's a lot going on right now in our country. A lot of it's confusing. It's a scary time. I've got children. I've got 3 young children, and I'm here to tell you that it is challenging to explain to them what's going on in our country right now. But I said before, and I'll say it again, I believe in the power of prayer to change things, and it can change the hearts of people. It can change this country. It can change the city. So please pray for everyone who's affected by today's tragedy. I also want to say thank you to the Dallas Police Department, and say thank you to the Dallas Sheriff's Department, Dallas County Sheriff's Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, and all of our various federal law enforcement partners who acted so quickly today to make sure that today's tragedy wasn't worse than what it was. So on behalf of the city of Dallas, I want to say thank you to all of you. And you're going to hear from some of those folks later, but I want to let you know that we appreciate what you all do, not just today, but every day, to help keep us all safe. And lastly, and this is really important, I would ask all of the city of Dallas residents who can hear me right now, let's be patient, let's remain calm, and let's let our law enforcement partners, our police department, do their job. This is an active investigation. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. And I want to encourage all of you to exercise a little bit of restraint and allow them to do their job to help make sure this continues to be a safe city, and that they can help us figure out what happened here today. But with that, I want to say, again, thank you to all the folks who came out this morning from our law enforcement community. I'll turn it over to our police chief, Daniel Como, to speak a little bit more directly to the investigation itself. And with that, Chief Como, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Today at approximately 6:40 a.m., we received a assist the officer call. We responded to the call, got to the scene, and we later learned that we had 4 individuals that were shot, 2 of them deceased, including the shooter. The DPD was able to locate the shooter, who was deceased. We're going to be working this investigation shoulder to shoulder with our federal partners. The FBI is on scene, and right now I'm going to introduce you to the SAC of the Dallas Field Division, FBI Joe Rumrock.
Yeah, good morning. My name's Joe Rothrock. I'm the special agent in charge of the Dallas FBI Field Office. I want to first start by thanking our partners in local law enforcement, specifically the Dallas Police Department, for their quick and timely response. I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence, to include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack. This will be a whole of government response. There will be no resource not utilized to bring all those individuals who are responsible to bring them to justice and to hold them accountable. While we're not releasing identities of any victims at this time, what I can confirm for you is no members of law enforcement were hurt during this attack. If any member of the public has information that would help the FBI's investigation, I would ask that you please report that to 1-800-CALL-FBI. Again, any piece of information will be helpful, but this will be an ongoing investigation between us, a number of federal partners, and our local partners, again, to ensure that anyone responsible is held accountable. With that, I will turn it over to my counterpart from the ICE Enforcement and Removal Office.
Good morning. My name is Joshua Johnson. I'm the acting field office director for ICE Dallas. I'll be brief with my comments, but I do want to start off by saying thank you to the Dallas Police Department, Dallas FBI, HSI, CBP, ATF, and virtually every law enforcement officer in North Texas for your support. This is the second time I've had to stand in front of you and talk about a shooter at one of my facilities, and I think that the takeaway from all of this is that the rhetoric has to stop. There are people out there who are seeing what is being placed online, and they're coming and they're doing acts of violence against ICE employees. So that's kind of all I have for today, is that it's just got to stop. It's dangerous, and people are losing their lives. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Again, thank you all so much. As it was said here today, if you do have any information, reach out to 1-800-CALL-FBI. Thank you. Thank you.
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree, that's fine, that's the democratic process, but your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other, and I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of law enforcement. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of ICE and CBP and everyone who puts their lives on the line to keep us safe. The divisive rhetoric tragically has real consequences. I hope that every one of us will pray, number one, for the safety of law enforcement that are risking their lives to keep us safe. Number two, for the health of those who were shot and injured today. We still don't know the full details of who was injured, but for the families also of the victims of this shooting. Violence has no place. It is wrong. And we should come together. If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other, and especially without demonizing the men and women who every day put on a badge and go risk their lives to keep us safe. And we should not be putting language out there that inspires madmen to commit evil crimes. Our prayers are with the men and women of law enforcement, and we ought to come together and have some decency across the political aisle to say this violence is wrong and it needs to stop.
Senator, have you been told that immigrant detainees were the victims of today's shooting?
My understanding is the details of who the victims are still being ascertained, so I don't want to go ahead of law enforcement releasing these details. What they have said is that no law enforcement was injured, and so that's a natural inference, but I don't know the details.
Special Agent, can you talk a little bit about some of the evidence you mentioned earlier? Just for clarity, I think there's going to be a lot of questions. Our understanding is that some of the shell casings had specific writing that was relevant to the motive. Give us more information.
So I'm not going to go into any more details at this time. We will come back to you when we have more details to share. Again, our goal here will be transparency as those details become available, but we are still in the early stages of an investigation. Information is still coming in. When we have more details, we will come back to this group. I'm not going to be identifying victims at this time. The only thing I will confirm at this time is no law enforcement was injured. Certainly you can respect law enforcement's need to make notifications. At this point in time, we're not going to take any additional questions from law enforcement. Again, I'd ask for you to respect the fact that this is an ongoing investigation, and as more details come available.
We're not asking for the names of the victims.
I understand.
All right, we were listening in there to that news conference we've been waiting on all morning long out of Dallas with not much of an update, although we can confirm right now that 4 people were shot early this morning at an ICE facility there. No law enforcement injured. 2 people were killed, including the shooter, which we've been reporting was a sniper on a nearby rooftop. That person turned the gun on himself. We don't have any identities just yet, so we're waiting to learn some more details about who that shooter was, what the motive was, although we are getting some more of an inkling at this point. The FBI confirming that they are investigating this as an act of targeted violence. They say early evidence there at the scene confirms that the shooter had some anti-ICE paraphernalia in nature. So this appeared to be anti-ICE, although no law enforcement were hit there at the scene. Early reports were that detainees were shot earlier this morning, although no identities are released. All we can confirm is that 3 people were shot, 1 person was killed, and the shooter was also killed early today. Again, we've been covering this since early this morning for you. This all happened at 6:40 Texas time, so 7:40 our time this morning at Dallas ICE field office off the freeway in that area near Dallas Love, the airport in that area northwest of Dallas, the downtown area. You heard this morning just there from Senator Ted Cruz. You also heard from the mayor there asking that the people in the area and all of us be patient as we wait to learn more about this investigation. Law enforcement are hard at work at this point trying to piece together why this happened this morning. We're not really sure what exactly the motive was, although this does appear to be anti-ICE. You heard from Eric Johnson, Dallas's mayor, too, asking for prayers, saying let's be patient and remain calm, but let law enforcement do their job. The FBI also asking for help with this investigation. If you know anything or you have family, friends in the Dallas area who may have more information, they're asking people to call 1-800-CALL FBI. We're staying on top of this and more breaking news here at home this morning. Want to get right to this as well. Breaking at home, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge is shut down right now after St. Pete police say they found a suspicious package. We're giving you a live look at the bridge right now. You can see the cones are out right now. You can see a Jeep, appears to be on the side of the road there. Police tell us someone left something near the 54th Avenue South on-ramp to the southbound lanes just minutes ago. Troopers shutting down the bridge in both directions. The Tampa Bomb Squad now investigating this, and out of an abundance of caution, we're told. We're going to keep you informed with the very latest information as we learn more. But again, if your commute takes you over the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, it is closed in both directions right now. More breaking news impacting travelers here at home. American Airlines flights are backed up right now because of what the airline calls an issue with maintenance applications. The airline tells us it's troubleshooting it, trying to keep flights going as much as possible. We checked the big board at TPA. There are at least 22 American flights delayed right now. So if that includes yours or a loved one, be advised that it may be a slow go today. You'll want to check your time if you are traveling today. We are back with much more information right after the break. We are keeping you informed with your weather impact forecasts as we track the tropics.
Windows are created and installed with different levels of quality. You need quality that can withstand the tropical climate. Our installers only install PGT custom windows and doors, so we are the go-to experts. Don't take my word for it. We have been named Best of Tampa Bay 3 years in a row, Reader's Choice in Sarasota 3 years in a row, and nationally recognized as Window and Door Dealer of the Year. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Give WeatherTight Windows a call today, and don't forget the cookies.
These big trucks are dangerous and fast. And when it comes to big truck wrecks, the stakes can be really high. That's why you need a lawyer that's gotten big results for his clients. Hi, I'm attorney Dan Newland. I've recovered billions of dollars for accident victims. So if you've been hit by one of these big trucks or involved in a car accident, call me now. Let me fight for you at 813-888-8000. That's 813-888-8000.
Before hurricane season hits, it's time to prep your home. Secure outdoor equipment and generators. Clear debris from around your AC unit and schedule a pre-storm HVAC and electrical inspection.
Those are some great tips. And Cool Today is here to help you weather the storm. For over 60 years, we've been here to help Floridians with their cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs. We can help you prepare, protect, and repair your home. Call 888-40
Jeopardy is for everybody.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah.
With players just like you.
Paramedic, a retired teacher, psychiatrist.
I'm a little bit competitive.
That's the spirit.
Watch their victories.
We have a giant killer.
And heartbreaks.
Oh, no.
The next super champion could be anyone.
It's almost like a superhero origin story.
It could be you.
Oh, wow.
It's all happening on Jeopardy!
Jeopardy weeknights at 7:30, right here on 10 Tampa Bay.
Thanks for sticking with us. I'm meteorologist James Hopkins. We're going to break down the tropics because there is a lot of stuff going on right now. For us here at home, weather is kind of calm. I would say calm. We're going to see a few storms later this afternoon. We'll hit on that coming up here at noon. But what we're going to talk about here is what's going on in the tropics. The good news is that Gabrielle has been downgraded now to a Category 2 storm as it's moving its way up and out. But there are two areas of interest, kind of shifting our focus as we go throughout the rest of this week and through the weekend. Forecast models are just kind of all over the place. Take a look at your tropical update here, and you can see again Category 2 Hurricane Gabrielle moving its way over towards kind of the east-northeast. There's the two invests down to the south. So let's get a quick update here on Gabrielle. 110 mile-per-hour winds moving to the east-northeast at now 25 miles an hour. It's getting picked up by the jet stream, so it's expected to move quickly further away from Bermuda and continue to gradually weaken as we go throughout the next couple of days, really. As you can see, it is going to be moving its way towards the Azores. Still going to be a Category 1 hurricane. It's the reason why all the islands there are outlined in red, and this is your hurricane warning for Gabrielle passing its way over the islands. And then it'll be a remnant low as we go throughout the day, Friday into Saturday. But look as it pushes its way down towards Portugal, towards the Mediterranean, and it's still going to pack a punch. As you can see, those winds 40 miles an hour as we go throughout your Sunday, 30 on Monday. So definitely some rough surf and very windy conditions with the rain for that area. Now, of course, the spaghetti models kind of show the same thing, still up and out, so no worries for us, but something I'm pretty sure that Spain and Portugal are going to be keeping a very close eye on as we go into the weekend. So again, shifting our focus back to two potentials, and both of them have a high chance for tropical development, and it'll be very interesting to see development of two systems this close together. And I'll show you a couple of scenarios as to why, but both of them have a 80 to a 90% chance for tropical development. Now, the next name on our list would be Umberto, and probably going to have that one over the weekend, the one a little further away. That is the one that looks to strengthen up a little bit quicker. And if that one does get stronger quicker, and even stronger than some of the forecast models are suggesting, then that could have a big impact on the other one, which is Invest 94. So I'll show you both those, but looks like we are likely to have another named system by this weekend, and it could be doubtful we have two, so I'll show you why. So here's 93. Again, 93 is the one a little bit further away from us, and you can see with the spaghetti models, it looks to follow a similar track as what Gabrielle had. Looks like it's going to be a little bit further to the west. It looks like it could pass Bermuda to the west, or kind of right over. So we'll zoom in a little bit here, and you see where Bermuda is. So again, most of the models take it to the west of Bermuda, so you'd have some impacts there for the east coast on this one. And you can see that is the GFS. Don't have any European model data on this one, but look how close some of them do take it to the coast of the Carolinas before making that turn up towards DC. The general consensus is still this one staying out to sea. But again, we're watching this one, 94. Now, this is the one that is just to the south of Puerto Rico right now. This one's going to have a little tougher time because it's going to pass through Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic. You know that it's very mountainous terrain. They're known to be able to tear systems apart, and then could slowly move its way up and through. There's Turks and Caicos, there's your Bahamas, and then moving its way up and out as well. That's the good news. So both of these really showing the consensus is those staying offshore. Going to be a problem for Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, but also the good news is that it's coming out of Hispaniola there, and it doesn't look to be, but maybe just a depression, maybe not even a depression by the time we go throughout the weekend. So here is your GFS ensemble runs, and again, kind of the same thing. It does follow the general consensus of the rest of the model runs there as well. So here we go. We do have a cold front. We'll be talking about this cold front for our forecast for bringing us some rain as we go into the weekend, but you can already see it here. Here's the European model, and this is as we go Saturday night. So there is your low, and that front could stall. So there again is potentially Hurricane Umberto offshore here. With this low, European model showing it getting pretty close to the coast here, but that front should help block it. And the European model shows it kind of pushing its way off of that. So that's going to be a big factor on where that one goes. And you can see here, whatever you kind of broaden the picture there, your moisture, your precipitable water really shows a good scenario here with that cold front. Kind of easy to define that cold front. So here are the two systems. As you can see, this one, again, more than likely through the weekend is going to be Umberto, maybe even a hurricane by then. The stronger this system is, the better it is for us with this one, because it's going to take some energy, not only take some energy, give it wind shear that this one's going to have to be battling with. Anytime you have two systems like this, the stronger one's going to win. And look how close they come together as we go throughout your Tuesday. So once this gets up through the Bahamas, again, this one's showing the potential by this time being a depression or maybe even a tropical storm. And then you can see here is Umberto moving its way up towards Bermuda and then kind of pushing its way back out. Now, I also want you to note this, the curve here. I'm going to show you that in just a second. So this is another scenario we're going to have to watch. So let's break it down here. Now, I've already showed you the European model likes both these systems. So there we go. As we go throughout the weekend, there's both systems. There is the one, and look how the close proximity it is there to South Carolina, while the other one is to the west of Bermuda. And then it moves this way up and out, but watch this one as it moves this way up and kind of gives that curve back. I'll show you that here in just a second as to why, or probably coming up after the first break. But here's your forecasted winds, and you can kind of see a little bit better both scenarios because you see this one strengthening up here, and then you see this one trying to get its act together in the Bahamas. So once it moves its way up and out, that's where it's showing a better potential for the development. You can see the wind there. And again, more than likely a depression or maybe even the next tropical storm on the list, because this one more than likely will be named first. And then there's both of them moving their way up and over towards the east-northeast. And then again, watch this system. There's Bermuda, and there's curving its way up. So the GFS, here's where the forecast models have been kind of going back and forth. You see the GFS model, watch what, well, unfortunately, maybe skip on to the next one because it always updates at this hour and freezes. Let's look at this one right here. This is your forecasted winds. Now watch what happens as we go throughout this weekend. And this is the interesting thing, has been going back and forth because this is what the European model was showing as we went early this week, Sunday into Monday. And look at that, only one system. It shows this one getting stronger and kind of killing this one. Again, wind shear is going to be a big issue if this one strengthens, and then it's going to move its way up and out. So we're going to take a quick break coming up here, and when we come back, I'm going to compare both models and show you the steering flow. Why, if we get two separate systems, why again the one closer to the coast could be an issue. We'll talk about that coming up after the break.
I was driving when an 18-wheeler turned in front of me. I locked up my brakes. Bam, slid dead into the truck. Bloody and hurt, I was loaded into an ambulance, and that's when I put out my phone and called Attorney Dan Newton. Dan jumped right on it. He was in my corner the whole way. He fought the fight from beginning to end and got me $1 million.
Involved in a car accident? Call me now at 813-888-8000.
Dan, your awesome team deserves 6 stars. Thank you for winning my case.
Weather impacts your life every day. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. You can find out about any change in the weather with our 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. Just stream for the latest forecast, any weather impact alert, updated tropics forecast, and take a live look at the radar. Anytime you want, and it's free. It's just one more way we're helping you stay informed, prepared, and connected. Stream 10 Tampa Bay Plus.
And it's like a movie script. It's family rivalry, betrayal, and murder.
They cover America's most fascinating true crime stories.
One way or another, that's an execution.
Absolutely.
Every case.
Who would want to hurt him?
Every clue.
This is dynamite for an investigator.
Every mystery that keeps you guessing until the very end.
Does everyone's jaws drop?
Dateline, 5 times a week.
Watch weekdays at 4 on 10 Tampa Bay.
Windows are created and installed with different levels of quality. You need quality that can withstand the tropical climate. Our installers only install PGT custom windows and doors, so we are the go-to experts. Don't take my word for it. We have been named Best of Tampa Bay 3 years in a row, Reader's Choice in Sarasota 3 years in a row, and nationally recognized as Window and Door Dealer of the Year. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Give WeatherTight Windows a call today, and don't forget the cookies.
All right, welcome back. So we're talking about the two the two potential systems, and the European model, again, like I mentioned, likes both of these systems to develop. The intensity model shows that the one that is closer to us, which would be Invest 94, tropical storm strength possibly doesn't show it hurricane strength. So that's good news there, but again, these intensity models also didn't pick up on Aaron becoming a Cat 5. But so we could potentially, as we go throughout early next week, have Umberto and Imelda. So that's what we're watching for. So I'm going to show you the model comparison. And again, this is what's been going back and forth, because what the GFS is showing now on Wednesday is what the European was showing on Monday. And then what the European showing now is what the GFS was showing on Monday. So they're flip-flopping back and forth. And again, until these two systems actually develop, until we get some depressions, these will be hard to figure out, because it's going to be the proximity and the strength to each other that is going to be the big determining factor. So let's compare the models. Again, the yellow is the GFS and the green is the European model. And you can see, there we go, there's 93. And there's 94. So again, your green is the Euro. Here is 93, here's 94. The GF model shows this one 93, and look how weak 94 is. Here's the interesting thing, is the GFS model does not show 94 making it out of the Bahamas. So you can see kind of this expanded right here. That shows kind of that possibly 93 could, again, basically kill it. European model still has both. Look at the proximity to South Carolina, but does show, again, of course, the more rings, the stronger it is. These are your isobars. This is your pressure. And it shows this one a little bit weaker. Depression, again, maybe tropical storm by then. And then you can see there, the GFS just shows one system moving its way out. You saw the first system move its way out with the Euro, and look what's back behind it. But look at it make, again, watch that little curve, that turn. That's because we could potentially get what's called a blocking high. We saw this, and again, the most famous one we have from this is Superstorm Sandy, where that blocking high came in. Sandy made that direct left turn right directly towards the west. And again, we all know what happened to Jersey, New York, and with that thing pushing down. And really, again, was a bad storm with that one. So there's your high pressure kind of sliding around, but watch what happens as we go into early next week. So I'll stop it here, go back here. So here's our two systems. Again, this is the European model. While the first one kind of escapes, and watch it move its way quickly out, gets picked up by the jet stream, there comes that blocking high. That's what could potentially push this thing maybe directly up towards the north. We'll see, because yesterday's forecast model showed these two going together, and then this pushing back again towards the Jersey Shore, maybe towards DC area. That's what we're watching closely. Now, one of the things I keep talking about is one of the things that could make only one storm instead of two. And look at your wind shear forecasts. And again, you could get this system, the stronger it is, look at all of this wind shear. And this is what the GFS is hinting that is a little bit more than what the European model shows. And that's why it has that one kind of falling apart, because this system, again, if it is Hurricane Umberto by then, it could cause quite a bit of wind shear, and that could either tear this system apart or kind of, like I said, maybe kind of suck it up there. So we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Super Typhoon Ragasa. It's already made 2 landfalls, so we'll talk about that coming up after the break.
I was driving when an 18-wheeler turned in front of me. I locked up my brakes, bam, slid dead into the truck. Bloody and hurt, I was loaded into an ambulance, and that's when I put out my phone and called attorney Dan Newland. Dan jumped right on it. He was in my corner the whole way. He fought the fight from beginning to end and got me $1 million.
Involved in a car accident? Call me now at 813-888-8000.
Dan, your awesome team deserves 6 stars. Thank you for winning my case.
Weather impacts your life every day. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. You can find out about any change in the weather with our 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. Just stream for the latest forecast, any weather impact alert, updated tropics forecast, and take a live look at the radar. Anytime you want, and it's free. It's just one more way we're helping you stay informed, prepared, and connected. Stream 10 Tampa Bay Plus.
And it's like a movie script. It's family rivalry, betrayal, and murder.
They cover America's most fascinating true crime stories.
One way or another, that's an execution.
Absolutely.
Every case.
Who would want to hurt him?
Every clue.
This is dynamite for an investigator.
Every mystery that keeps you guessing until the very end.
Does everyone's jaws drop?
Dateline, 5 times a week.
Watch weekdays at 4 on 10 Tampa Bay.
Windows are created and installed with different levels of quality. Unique quality that can withstand the tropical climate. Our installers only install PGT custom windows and doors, so we are the go-to experts. Don't take my word for it. We have been named Best of Tampa Bay 3 years in a row, Reader's Choice in Sarasota 3 years in a row, and nationally recognized as Window and Door Dealer of the Year. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Give WeatherTight Windows a call today, and don't forget the cookies.
Well, as I mentioned as we went into the break, we're going to talk about Super Typhoon Ragasa. It already crossed over Taiwan and made landfall into China, and it's causing significant damage. Check it out.
With a ferocity not witnessed in Hong Kong for years, Super Typhoon Ragasa pummeled the city Wednesday morning, bringing hurricane-force winds, torrential rain, and a storm surge that left a trail of destruction. A river of seawater crashed through the lobby of a luxury hotel, sending people and glass flying. In neighbouring Taiwan, heavy rain caused a dam to overflow, The wall of water killing more than a dozen people downstream and washing away this bridge. In southern China, hundreds of thousands of people had to be evacuated from low-lying areas as what's been dubbed the King of Storms lashed the coastline.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
For my family and I who live near the water, it was too close for comfort.
And you check the house, okay?
This violent storm surge turning a calm estuary into a menacing threat.
Suddenly this huge surge of water, all these waves crashed into our front yard, and as you can see, flooding, water's now trapped, and my boys and I are trying to now get it out.
Thankfully, our perseverance and sandbags paid off. But not everyone was as fortunate to walk away unscathed. Super Typhoon Ragasa lost some of its intensity as it made landfall later in southern China, with big waves pounding